back with the presentation again. Sorry about that, everyone, for that little glitch. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so the other announcement that we had is that we are now partnering with AIAA, and we have a core hydrogen course. It's I will share with you the link in the description and also in the chat in a while. It's a very exciting time for HYSKY. We are going to have a course on hydrogen aviation, and many of you might want to join it. So I'll put the link in the chat in a while. Similarly, please help spread the word. We have a company brochure now. It's on our website. You can scan the QR code, or you can. I'll put the link again in the chat, and you can share it with you and spread the word around. And finally, this is why Danielle isn't on today. She has become a grandma once more, this time to twins. Her new grandkids are Bloom Christina Jones and Tad Allen Jones, a boy and a girl. So congratulations to Grandma Danielle. Once again, so please help keep HYSKY Monthly free for perpetuity. We have different sponsorship options. You can please scan the QR code, spread the message, and help us remain free. So thank you so much for joining in droves as always. So all of us, can we turn on our webcams and let's take a group picture like we do always. Thank you once again for joining in, and I'm Rishabh once again. So if you're seeing somebody glitching at their screens, being a little uncomfortable with their announcements, it's me. I had to step in for Danielle. She has become a grandmother again, but we have other exciting things happening in HYSKY as well. We have an AIAA course, we have Flying High, and we have our new company brochure out. And today we have Matt Williams from the California Air Resources Board. He's the investment strategy lead. He has been a lifelong aviation enthusiast. He has grown up on the flight lines of bomber and logistics air bases in Northern California. So while studying human biology at Montana State University, he became deeply interested in health disparities in the underprivileged rural communities. He conducted NIH-funded researches on novel pediatric oral health intervention strategies in Montana's remote Native American reservations. Pivoting from research to policy, Matt turned to air pollution and climate change back in his home state. At the California Air Resources Board, aptly named CARB, Matt combines a background in public health and a lifelong obsession with transportation, leading California's long-term heavy-duty investment strategy. Through extensive collaboration with the public, end users, and experts across dozens of industries and academia, the strategy provides a roadmap for the use of public funds to decarbonize all forms of on and off road transportation. Since 2016, Matt has worked on various incentive programs at CARB and supported regulatory efforts to accelerate the transition to zero emissions. He remains a passionate plane spotter with LAX as his preferred weekend destination. Matt, welcome, and please take it away. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you so much. Okay, and I'll begin sharing the presentation as well. Okay, hopefully that's visible to everyone. If I could just get a thumbs up from somebody or confirmation verbally. Okay. Sounds like good, great.
No, we're not seeing your screen.
No, not seeing
Not
it.
seeing screen.
No, okay.
It says end of slideshow, click to exit.
Oh, is it? Let me stop my share.
There you go.
Okay,
There you go.
now we got it.
Great. Thank you all very much. Okay, so as introduced, I'm Matt Williams. I work for the California Air Resources Board, and I work primarily on our clean transportation incentives, which is a group of funding programs I'll get into more detail about. But first, a quick explanation on the California Air Resources Board for those who aren't familiar. The California Air Resources Board is part of a three-tiered system for improving air quality and combating climate change. Nationally, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or US EPA, sets national health-based air quality standards for pollutants such as ozone and particulate matter. They set emission standards for vehicles in large industrial facilities such as oil refineries and power plants, and they also have authority over interstate sources such as trains, airplanes, and ocean-going vessels. Meanwhile, the California Resources Board, or CARB, sets California's own health-based air quality standards statewide for vehicles, fuels, consumer products, and sources of toxic air contaminants. California is the only state permitted under the Federal Clean Air Act to set its own requirements for motor vehicles. Other states are allowed to copy the California standards, and this is known as Section 177 of the Clean Air Act. CARB also develops and implements programs for addressing greenhouse gases. We have significant goals to achieve, such as reducing air pollution by 71%, reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 48% by 2030, and by 85% by 2045, as compared to 1990 levels. We have a number of documents that help us reach these goals, such as the state implementation plan that also requires reductions in NOx. By 2037, we have to achieve nearly a 36% reduction in total oxides of nitrogen or NOx emissions relative to 2018, which are especially significant reductions that need to happen from medium and heavy duty on and off-road vehicles. In coordination with the US EPA and CARB, we work with our local air pollution control districts. There's a network of air quality management plans across the state that help us to attain and maintain federal air quality standards. The state of California has an array of ambitious climate change and air pollution reduction goals that are enshrined in statute and enumerated in a body of policy and guidance documents, supplying important context for our investment programs, which we'll be focused on today. These documents range from executive orders and legislative mandates that are driving the transition to zero-emission vehicles and reductions in climate pollutants, such as the governor's executive orders on zero-emission technologies and the California Sustainable Communities and Climate Protection Act, to our Senate Bill 350 low-income barrier study and mobile source strategy, both designed to help us attain those goals. Beyond the state's statutory and other goals, CARB is the state's responsible entity for mobile source emissions control. While my work and the focus of our talk today will be on incentives, CARB's incentive programs work hand in hand with its regulatory programs to accelerate the transformation of the heavy-duty market for zero-emission vehicles. The role of incentives is largely to support early commercialization and market development In advance of regulatory requirements, incentives also help to drive early adopter purchase decisions by reducing incremental costs and supporting vehicle cost reductions over time by building manufacturer economies of scale. Incentives for vehicles and infrastructure are critical, particularly in the early market development years, and to help smaller fleets and owner-operators while achieving market equity. As regulatory requirements approach, CARB's incentive strategy shifts towards a focus on providing financial assistance for smaller fleets that face challenges in qualifying for traditional financing programs and are not required by existing regulations to switch to zero-emission vehicles. In some incentive programs, limited incentives remain available once regulations are in effect for generating emissions reductions beyond what is required by the regulations. California has a number of incentive programs working together with regulations and guiding policy documents to accelerate the green transition. Each incentive program has its own distinct goals that support the state's broader strategy. It's important to maintain the integrity of each program's goals to ensure that the state achieves both immediate air quality benefits and it supports the innovative technologies necessary to meet the state's vision of a zero-emission economy. Our leading policy document for clean transportation investments, the funding plan for clean transportation incentives, serves as the annual blueprint for expending funds from two funding sources, those being low carbon transportation and the air quality improvement program, together known as clean transportation incentives. These funds are appropriated to CARB annually in the state budget and are part of the broader portfolio of funding that CARB administers to improve air quality, enhance community protection, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The funding plan establishes CARB's priorities for the current funding cycle or budget year and describes the projects CARB intends to fund and sets funding targets and outreach strategies for each project. Each year, the funding plan is updated and includes funding proposals and implementation details specific to each fiscal year. The annual funding plan is complemented by our long-term heavy-duty investment strategy, which we will turn to now. The heavy-duty investment strategy serves as CARB's long-term investment strategy for clean transportation incentives funding. It covers 3 years of funding and is updated annually. The strategy serves as a roadmap showing how state incentives can help spark private sector investment and create partnerships necessary to support the transformation of the heavy-duty on- and off-road sectors. It identifies key priority areas for investment that will help to ensure a smooth and continued transformation in the heavy-duty space. Each year, the heavy-duty investment strategy includes several key elements, including an updated discussion on how investments drive the technology advancement and market adoption of clean heavy-duty technologies needed to meet climate and air quality goals, updates on the current status of the advanced heavy-duty vehicle and equipment technologies available and becoming available soon, an assessment of barriers to broad market adoption for technologically viable vehicles and equipment, additional ways to report on the metrics of investment success, and an updated 3-year set of recommendations for heavy-duty vehicle and off-road investments, and the ways that we're using those investments to support communities and market equity. CARB's investments support advanced technologies across the commercialization pathway, providing a way for the transformation of heavy-duty projects to help meet our quality and climate goals. This graphic provides an example of how incentive funding has enabled that. The Air Quality Improvement Program funds projects all the way from pre-commercial demonstrations through financing assistance for fleets, while the Low Carbon Transportation Program also funds projects from early pre-commercial demonstration phase through pilots and early commercialization. Our specific programs like HVIP, our clean voucher program for on-road vehicles, and CORE, our voucher program for clean off-road equipment, play a key role providing a bridge between early commercial deployment and market scale adoption. Programs you may be familiar with, like the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust or Carl Moyer, also fund broad purchase incentives for fleet turnover. CARB uses a variety of metrics to track the progress of different vehicle and equipment technologies and vocations as they move through these incentive programs. The heavy-duty investment strategy works to define the outcomes successful investments should strive to achieve. Metrics developed for the strategy can be grouped into 3 broader categories: supporting healthy communities, supporting technology evolution, and growing the green economy. This updated set of metrics is built on data that CARB has collected from its successful HVIP and core on and off-road incentive programs, whose funding has helped to provide the benefits enumerated here. Notable findings in the updates from last year to this year include a massive increase in the number of eligible models that are eligible for incentives in California to over 500. Clean vehicles and equipment continue to do work for our operators and the communities in which they operate. Total cleaner miles traveled is approaching 400 million, half of which have been in designated disadvantaged communities, while operating hours for zero emission equipment funded by CORE nearly doubled from last year. Tracking these metrics is becoming more important as our heavy duty investments are increasingly geared towards equitable investments in priority populations and small businesses. Monitoring the status of key technologies is imperative to maintain the effectiveness of the investment strategy and track progress against goals. With input from grantees and from industry stakeholders, CARB conducts an annual high-level snapshot review to assess the generalized status and progress of key technologies to provide valuable directional guidance on where important technology platforms are in terms of technology readiness for the market. While the technology status snapshots provide an assessment of the level of advancement for emerging technologies, this can make for an incomplete picture. Market and economic factors can hold back what would otherwise be a technologically advanced, commercially viable platform. Being an important factor to investment policy, the strategy includes an analysis of market readiness. In this analysis, we assess the viability of commercially available technologies against 6 market readiness indicators, things including production capacity, duty cycle applicability, and the availability of workforce and service networks, and charging and fueling infrastructure. The distillation of the long-term heavy-duty investment strategy is the 3-year heavy-duty investment priorities table seen here. Each year, the strategy culminates in this table, which describes the priority areas and types of projects that we deem most necessary for investment or the highest priority to continue driving the advancement of zero emission and advanced clean technologies over the coming years. The chart also includes what we estimate to be necessary investment levels to maintain market momentum. However, importantly, this chart does not actually describe the appropriations that will happen or the funding that is achieved. Rather, this chart merely shows what we believe to be necessary and serves as a signal not just to California, but to the rest of the world about the magnitude of investment needed to continue driving technology advancement and market penetration. While the heavy-duty investment strategy provides guidance and an estimation for overall needs, our programs are ultimately supported by appropriations in the annual state budget, which has for several years provided substantial funding for clean transportation investments. This is the 3rd year of a 5-year multi-agency accelerated ZEV funding package that was agreed to by the governor and legislature to equitably develop the zero-emission vehicle market, both light and heavy-duty transportation sectors, as well as other mobility options such as e-bikes and public transportation. The funding plan, which programs our annual appropriations from the legislature, includes a justification for its recommendations, a detailed guide to how funds will be spent, recommendations for specific policies implemented in each program, and how our investment programs can achieve their desired goals of combating climate change, improving community health, and improving market equity. I'll briefly give you an overview of the funding plan process, which is currently happening. The state is now in the process of budget deliberations. Last week, the governor produced his May revision to his proposed January budget. The legislature will now be in budget negotiations through June, when they will are required by the Constitution to pass an annual budget. The annual budget will make any appropriations to the California Resources Board, if any, to run our investment programs. Following the completion of the budget process, with us now knowing what our appropriation will be, we kick off the annual funding plan process where we program those appropriations. So we'll be having our first workshop for the funding plan next month in June. I'll be providing more information on specific dates and posting links in the chat later for you guys to all get involved. And we'll be doing the process for all of our investment programs, light and heavy duty, through early fall. In October, we anticipate releasing the funding plan, and in usually around November, our board will consider and approve any final funding plan. After approval of the funding plan, then we can begin project implementation. So to date, as I was mentioning, California has put a lot of money into clean transportation investments. California has long been a leader in combating climate change and reducing air pollution. And as you can see in this table, investments, especially in recent years, have added up to quite a lot, over $7 billion in appropriations so far. And of course, this current year for fiscal year 24-25, the budget is in process. But as many of you probably know, California has quite a tight budget this year, and they are forecasting a budget shortfall. So we're expecting our appropriation this year to be quite lean. So quick overview of the funding plan development schedule so all of you can get involved. We will be having our first, please ignore the today, we will be having our first kickoff workshop on June 13th. Again, I'll put a link in the chat in a little bit later for you to get more information and to register for that. We'll have daytime work group meetings on specific program requirements and policies for this fiscal year throughout the summer and early fall, with a draft of the funding plan coming out in mid-August. A second workshop tentatively scheduled for August 29th, and a release of the final funding plan in October with board approval in November. And as I said, project implementation for those policies would begin in December. Quick overview of the heavy duty programs that are funded through the funding plan. So we have a number of medium and heavy duty on and off-road investments bolstered by our vehicle purchase incentives. These come in the form of two programs: HVIP, which is our clean voucher incentive project for on-road medium and heavy duty vehicles. It provides a point of sale incentive for the purchase of clean trucks, buses, things like that, all on-road. And it's complemented by a similar program called CORE, Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, which provides similar time of purchase voucher incentives that reduces the upfront purchase cost of cleaner technology options. All of our investment programs are built to ensure that the investments are equitably distributed and are strategically focused on priority communities, reducing barriers for small businesses, and collaborating with other state agencies and community partners. So as I mentioned, our heavy-duty incentives are primarily, most of the investments are run through HVIP, our on-road voucher incentive project, and CORE, our off-road voucher incentive project, but it is complemented by a number of other important projects, such as our school bus investments and innovative small e-fleets, which is a equity-focused program that complements HVIP. Of interest more to this group would be our advanced technology demonstration and pilot projects and CORE. CORE includes, and I think I'll just actually jump ahead, I have a slide on this. CORE is, again, a point of sale incentive for off-road equipment. It essentially is cash on the hood that reduces the upfront purchase price of cleaner advanced technologies, usually zero emission technologies, everything from tugs and tractors to commercially available agricultural spray drones. Stacking is allowed, there's no scrappage required, so it's a really easy program to access. Of even more interest to this group, and really the focus here, is our advanced technology demonstration and pilot projects. This program has existed since 2014 to accelerate the development of early market technologies and to accelerate market growth. Our demonstration projects support pre-commercial technologies, so those that are not commercially available yet and are still in their early stages of development, while pilot projects boost early market volumes of commercially available technologies, both working together to bring new technologies to market and then develop those markets. We recently completed a $225 million joint solicitation with the California Energy Commission. We received 31 applications last fall, requesting over 425 million in requests. So that's over $200 million oversubscription. We have selected 12 applications for funding, and all projects are expected to begin this year. You may take note of the photo on the left, which is of an agricultural spray drone built by Pika, company based in the California Bay Area. They are part of one of our projects and will be our very first aviation project. As part of that, we'll be deploying several Pika drones to California's Central Valley. Unfortunately, we are not expecting any new funding for demonstration and pilot projects this budget year. But if in the future we do receive an appropriation for demonstration and pilot projects, then we would be able to open a new solicitation for funding projects like that. And that gets to what I'm hoping to talk to all of you about. Now that we've gotten through kind of the general landscape of what CARB does and our funding programs, what I'm really hoping to do is to learn from all of you today. Now, we understand that there are certain obvious near-term solutions in need of investment, things low-hanging fruit like sustainable aviation fuel. As I mentioned, we have our very first aviation project in our demonstration pilot projects with ag drones, but we suspect that cargo drones are probably also in that late stage of technology development or early market entry and are probably ready for investment. Also interested in exploring advanced air mobility or urban air mobility. And there's probably a lot of other things on the horizon, like regional commercial passenger transportation, clean sheet, zero emission cargo planes, or decarbonized aircraft propulsion systems. And of course, a hot topic always, hydrogen hubs and land and air hydrogen ecosystems, some of which are likely to be supported by the federal investments in hydrogen hubs. So the question to all of you on the call and what I'm hoping to learn from you all is, what should we, the government, be planning for? How can we help, and where will investments be most beneficial in advancing zero and low carbon aviation? I know those are really big open-ended questions. Aviation is very new to CARB. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, interstate sources like airplanes are within the regulatory scope of the US EPA, not the Air Resources Board. So this is an area that we're just now dipping our feet into the water, and we're hoping to utilize your expertise in this group as a good source for information and guidance. So with those really big questions, Rishabh, should we just open it? Do you want to help to moderate this discussion? How should we proceed?
Yeah, hey, Matt, really great presentation, a very high level overview. I know there's a lot going on over at CARB. I guess, this time, duration that we have would not be enough, but we will just cover as much as we can, as many as questions that we can take from the audience. So one thing about HYSKY Monthly is that we let our audience unmute and come on video and talk to you and ask you questions. I see Kathleen and Will Crompton raising their hands, but before that, Satya had asked a question. So Sant, maybe you want to go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Matt. Great presentation. Very happy to see that advanced air mobility is part of the scope, and plenty of innovative ideas in there, including airframe designs and hydrogen propulsion, and also the landing pads and the hydrogen refueling ecosystems in there. Just wanting to see how you, each company is doing many different things. And I think it would be best served, at least for us, to have a separate meeting with you, maybe even 30 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. So we can introduce our company and then go at it, and then hear your thoughts on how to go about it. We are mostly present in the East Coast, but with a lot of interest in the West Coast. So would love to hear your suggestions. And also, if you can share me your email, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually put my email in the chat for everyone, as always, but certainly when we're entering a new area of work, in this case with aviation, we welcome any opportunity to learn from industry groups, advocates, stakeholders around the country and indeed around the world to learn more about what's available and what's to come. So I'll put my email in the chat, and appreciate any of you reaching out to share your expertise and your anticipations for the future.
All right. So up next, Ovi has asked a question. So Ovi, if you're still here, please do ask, Matt.
Thank you. Great presentation. Having lived here in California, I understand the importance that the state has put on hydrogen. Oh, well, clean energy. I don't know about hydrogen yet. My question is, I know we're talking about transportation. I'm sure you're well aware of that. One of the challenges, if we look at hydrogen specifically, is the infrastructure just not there for making hydrogen. I'm just curious, does CARB look at funding the production of hydrogen and its utilization that goes a little bit beyond just transportation, because there's lots of uses for hydrogen? I'm just curious, how are you guys pursuing that aspect of it?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. Yeah, hydrogen, both hydrogen and battery electric pose pretty substantial infrastructure challenges. California has a multi-pronged approach to attempting to address those. So the California Air Resources Board does have a role in working on infrastructure, including supporting the Arches Hydrogen Hub program, as well as supporting other state agencies in their estimations of the need for infrastructure. California, however, the Air Resources Board is not the lead agency. So the governor's Office of Business and Development works together with the lead agencies, the Public Utilities Commission and the California Energy Commission, to do all of the infrastructure planning and investment. So the various agencies within the state work together to estimate what eventual needs will be, create roadmaps for investment and timelines for when infrastructure needs to be available. Definitely the biggest, a very large, hairy problem at CARB, though we do focus on the vehicle side, and most of our dealing with infrastructure is really supporting those other agencies and understanding the expected need.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's something said by Sarah Mitran, if I said your name right. You're talking about drone flights. So if you're still there, Sarah. Okay, so I'm not sure what they meant. What Sarah has meant by extension of drone flight testing period, and don't bail out big airline players. She's probably meaning that if you fund drone flight testing periods.
Yeah, so I'll give a little more context on our first foray into low carbon aviation. The project that we have recently selected for funding, for which PICA is the primary technology provider, that'll be demonstrating battery electric agricultural spray drones in California Central Valley. That project is expected to demonstrate those drones in that project for at least a couple of years. And we also expect that those drones will continue to remain in operation. Of course, these demonstration and pilot projects have a number of benefits. It's not just that we're accomplishing this early demonstration of emerging technologies and helping technology providers to enhance and more quickly mature the technologies to bring to market, but we're also given the opportunity to show the world, and even at a more local level within California, that other potential users can access this technology, that it works, that it delivers real benefits to its operators, its users. A fantastic example I like to give was that in 2019, we funded a project with a technology partner being Wabtec, formerly GE Transportation, to deploy the world's first battery electric line haul freight locomotive. That locomotive was operated by BNSF in California between the northern Central Valley town of Stockton and the Southern California town of Barstow. It was a pretty long route, operated for about a year. And through that demonstration, Wabtec was able to gather a lot of information to build their second generation of that battery electric locomotive, much better, greater range, greater capacity, greater capabilities. It also allowed BNSF a hands-on opportunity to try out the technology, and they got to see firsthand what the savings were. It was a very successful demonstration in no small part because the data resulting from it and the publicity led to companies around the world ordering well over a dozen of that second generation battery electric locomotive from Wabtec, and those are now being delivered and deployed around the world. So that's the sort of thing that we hope to achieve in aviation as well, demonstrating feasibility, accelerating, bringing technologies to market, and ultimately also accelerating market volumes ahead of regulations.
That's really great. It's really great, Matt. And exactly segue to the question I wanted to kind of put in is that how can we get our aviation folks involved? There are lots of them here on the. In fact, almost every one of them is an aviation or an aviation enthusiast or a company that's related, and we all want to know how we can get involved. So, I think you kind of touched upon it, so I'm just gonna let I guess Will Crampton ask his question because he wanted to put in a quick word about the hydrogen hub as well.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Sorry, you can all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Matt. And do you want to turn on video? I can't turn it on. I got turned off. But that's okay. I'll talk. Anyway, I've been on the hydrogen hub, the Arches H2 hydrogen hub transportation committee for about a year and a half. We recently, let me first say, for people who are not from California or are not familiar with hydrogen hubs in the United States, who are not familiar with the hydrogen hubs in the United States, about $7 billion was awarded by the Biden government through IRA funding, so that to 7 different hubs around the United States. Okay, so that's that's specifically hydrogen to be used for everything, and one of the main uses for it is in transportation. Here in California, I was involved, and I'm on the transportation committee, Matt, with Leslie Goodbody, who's very active, as you know. So Matt probably knows all about this, but I'll just give a little bit of context and then sort of what the main things that we're doing here in California are. So the hydrogen hubs the government of the United States is putting a lot of money into the development of hydrogen in the United States. Here in California, we got $1.2 billion, which was the largest award in the United States. Probably number 2 is going to be the Houston or Texas area, because they're going to be doing hydrogen from natural gas. So here in California, a lot of people are most concerned about aviation, but for CARB, they're most concerned about right now about getting rid of all of the diesel engines, especially in and out of the port areas, especially the port of Long Beach and Oakland and in the San Francisco Bay Area, and third would probably be down in San Diego. So how are we going to do that? This is actually one of the biggest pushes for the development of hydrogen, is changing from hydrogen trucking to, this is cargo trucking, from diesel to hydrogen or electric. And one of the big problems here in California is we have to move all of these goods that come in. Long Beach is the biggest port in the United States. Everything that you buy at Walmart pretty much comes in from Long Beach. And then it has to be moved up to all these warehouses that are inland. And one of the biggest areas is up in Ontario, which is up this big long grade up a mountain. and it's not very good for electric trucks. And this one thing is probably going to push hydrogen development in the United States more than anything else, because hydrogen can push large loads up those grades. Okay, so why are we talking about aviation? Because the faster we can move goods and cargo out of the port areas to warehouse areas or where they're going to be sold, the better. And so for hydrogen aviation, a lot of this activity is happening in the port of Long Beach. So if you want to get involved or understand how we're going to move cargo with hydrogen, there's two main areas. One is moving cargo, the other is moving people. But if you're talking about moving cargo, that's actually going to probably happen faster. And that's probably going to be centered around Long Beach and around the Port of Oakland here in California. So that's sort of what I want to say. So Matt, my question to you is, how fast do we want to move on hydrogen aviation for cargo, and can you give us anything more about what might be happening there?
Well, as always, the most important context is that California lacks regulatory authority over aviation, so we don't really have the opportunity to directly drive a fast change. Of course, we can use investments, and we do hope to use our investments to encourage early action, bring technologies to market faster than they would otherwise. But we also intend to work with our federal partners to hopefully accelerate the process. We do see hydrogen as a throughput problem, whereas battery electric solutions tend to be economical pretty quickly at a small scale. Their problems actually scale with size. So as you do a larger deployment, it gets harder and more expensive. Whereas hydrogen, it's actually very expensive to start. And of course, this won't surprise anybody here. I'm sure you all know this. Hydrogen is very expensive to start, but the more you use it, the cheaper it gets. So that's the whole point of having the Hydrogen Hubs program, is to create these ecosystems that are producing and using large volumes of hydrogen at a low per unit of energy cost. We anticipate this is exactly how the transition is going to go with aviation. When I mentioned that battery electric locomotive project earlier, that was part of what we called ZANZEF, which was one of our many crazy acronyms that stood for Zero and Near Zero Emission Freight Facilities. The idea was that those projects were all transformational ecosystem projects where we had multiple different types of equipment that were operating out of either an individual or multiple connected facilities, maximizing ecosystems and economies of scale in fuel use and production. And that's exactly what we think is going to happen in the near future, what's going to be necessary, and what the ARCHES and other Hydrogen Hubs programs are going to achieve. So while I certainly don't have a crystal ball, and in fact, the whole reason why I'm here is to ask all of you what you think is coming next, for sure, CARB is very interested to hear your thoughts and do what we can to drive that technology and those ecosystems even faster.
All right, that's quite a lot of things to do. We had this Hydrogen Hub Summit a few weeks ago, and we did learn about ARCHES, and and there's we do want to hear from ARCHES. So what Will said, I think is as an add-on to what we did here a few weeks ago. We do want to hear what ARCHES and other hydrogen hubs want to do, because that data was kind of missing, because the hubs are still in negotiation with the DOE. Hopefully we'll have from them soon.
Rishav, if I may, let me just mention that last week or 2 weeks ago, at our transportation committee meeting for ARCHES H2, it was mentioned that the main projects for the funding for ARCHES H2 funding, $1.2 billion here coming into California, the main projects have already been set. But if you join now and you still have a project, a smaller project, You know, and when they're talking about smaller project, they're talking about $1 to $5 million like that. That can still be considered for Arch's H2 funding. They can put it into the mix because they think that one or two may drop out. One or two of the major projects may drop out, and some of the funding may still be available. So anybody who, you know, has an interest, you have to have an interest in California. You have to have a nexus or a business entity or some office or something here in California, really. But if you do, and you're interested in funding from the Arches H2 hydrogen pot of money, smaller projects can still be considered for about another month, I think.
Wow.
So
Okay,
just mention.
yeah, that's great. So I think that answers
You
one
have
of
to
the.
join. You have to join Arches H2 from their website,
Okay.
and then mention that this is what you want to do. And they're pretty open right now because we're sort of waiting around for the funding to be finally approved and the contract to be signed with the government.
All right. Yeah, that's great, Will. So feel free to drop the link if you have in the chat. So Amethyst, you're waiting. You have your hand up. You have a question, please go ask it. Matt.
Yeah, I'm really wondering, has CARB looked into infrastructure planning for these new technologies at airports? So the airports of the future are being planned out now, and they're usually controlled by state or municipal governments who, you know, need money to do things. How is CARB is CARB looking into that sort of thing?
So as I mentioned before, it is a multi-pronged approach when it comes to how the state is addressing and planning for and investing in zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. CARB has a supporting role in that. Primarily, our duty is to, you know, do those regulations, to turn over to reduce emissions from the mobile source sector, to do our planning for when we expect vehicles to be coming online, and therefore when infrastructure also needs to be ready, and then work with the California Energy Commission to make sure that their infrastructure specific planning accounts for that. At a smaller scale, we have in the past and continue to work with ports, not just airports, but seaports and intermodal rail yards, things like that, to understand what their needs are going to be and make sure that they are aware and planning for that. Like for example, the seaports, the ports of like LA and Long Beach, Oakland, Stockton, they are well aware of the transition that is currently underway, and they're doing a lot of planning work both with us and with the Energy Commission as well as the state more broadly to ensure that infrastructure is ready for what they will need 10, 20 years from now. Airports, because of how little regulatory authority we have over them, have definitely been, I don't want to say a blind spot for CARB. We have regulated things like ground support equipment, and so we've done a lot of work with California's airports in the past there. But we do believe that there's probably a greater need for coordination with the airports and the local authorities that govern them. I know that like South Coast Air Quality Management District, which is the largest air district in the state, they are very hands-on with their entities. They're working closely with airports like Ontario and LAX on their longer-term plans. But it is just a little tricky on exactly how we can and should get involved with them, but certainly any connections that this group can help to make. The more we know, even if there's not much that we can do about it, the more we know, the better we can plan, the better we can integrate that information into things like our mobile source strategy, which provides this greater timeline for how the transition happens across all sectors.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I know that Robert and Michael have their hands raised for a while now. So Robert, yeah, please go ahead and ask Matt your question.
Thank you. Matt, our company may be ready for a demonstration event with hydrogen fueled drones. We have provided hydrogen refueling stations to all three of the major military branches to fuel their drones, sorry. They have obviously found that there's much longer on-station availability for drones powered by hydrogen than by a battery. We've also sent refueling stations to the Dutch military in NATO. They have had one station for a year and have ordered a second one. And we have also had drone refueling stations on a Navy ship for an extended period of months, where it's on a seaborne platform, subject to the environment of a ship at sea that also carries a drone. So as I said, we're basically ready to support a demonstration project. My guess is there are product manufacturers out there who are or have built or could quickly provide a hydrogen-powered drone for the Central Valley uses that you have, the battery zone out there, and perhaps for others, law enforcement, other kinds of security issues. So if that's of interest, I have your email and could send you some additional information.
Thanks, Robert. We always welcome getting to know our stakeholders and the various technology providers out there. Unfortunately, at this time, the California Air Resources Board does not have any funding for advanced technology demonstration and pilot projects. As I mentioned, we did recently, last fall, close our most recent solicitation for $225 million worth of projects. Those are getting underway now. And we're also not anticipating receiving funding for more advanced technology demonstration pilots this fiscal year. That means that at earliest, we might receive an appropriation for demos and pilots next fiscal year, which
Sure.
would mean that we wouldn't be actually starting those projects until 2026. So fortunately, quite a long timeline for us, but that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities elsewhere. The federal government has a lot of programs. Certainly being involved with Arches might be an opportunity. And then I always recommend, this is kind of a circuitous way of finding friends, is you see who else is participating in our program. So like I put a link in a little earlier, and I'll drop it in again to get involved with our annual funding plan. Even in lean budget years like this one, the group of stakeholders who want to have input on our funding policies is very broad, and it can be a great way of meeting possible project partners now or in the future, or possible customers. So getting involved in our public process, going back to like the work group meetings that we had for the demo and pilot solicitation last year, all of that on our website. You can find lists of participants and watch those work groups and get a sense of who might be a good ally for you, even when we don't have funding available.
Okay, that sounds great.
And Robert, maybe you're a good fit for Arches, like Will has said. So yeah, I will leave that to you. So Michael Kramer, you've been waiting patiently. I'm gonna let you ask away.
Hey, Michael, I'm not able to hear you.
Did Michael?
I do
he's
see
here.
you, but we're not hearing you. I wonder if your mic is properly connected. Maybe you switch inputs.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, operator. Sorry about that. Hey, Matt, good to see you again. It's been a little while. Question I've got is we've been struggling with testing, large scale liquid hydrogen testing. Just not available cost effectively, not available to do TRL6 kind of level testing for aviation, to the point where we talk to, we'll just say, big airplane company, and are looking at setting up a dedicated facility out in Antelope Valley somewhere. Has CARB looked at that? And when I say large scale, think being able to do like a drop test of a 300 to 3,000 kilogram hydrogen tank for an aircraft.
The short answer is no, we've not done that. Now, we have worked on the past to help develop other standards, such as standards for light and heavy duty, low and high pressure hydrogen fueling. But I would recommend, if you haven't already, talking to Weights and Measures, which is the California entity in charge of most fueling standards. And they may be able to help you out. But that is definitely a blind spot of mine. I do not know a whole lot about how the state is approaching new fueling standards beyond what has been worked on for on-road heavy duty.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks, Mike. We have another question. It's Blake Moffett. So Blake, you're still here, right? Please do go ahead and ask.
Okay, yeah. If you can hear me. Yeah, my
We can hear
question
you.
was, okay, good. So my question is the way that I understand it, a lot of the automotive investment in fuel cell vehicles in the past, which were relying heavily on for aerospace, was driven by CARB regulations and credits provided to the automotive companies. And I really haven't kept up with that for several years. So my question is under the current landscape, like how do the automotive credits for EVs versus fuel cells, how do they compare under the current landscape? And do you expect that automotive companies will continue to invest in hydrogen infrastructure and in fuel cell cars in the future? And asking because we're getting a lot of components and stuff and benefiting from what's being developed for automotive. So both the supply base and for both the fuel cell systems and for the support of those the logistics support. So that's my question.
Yeah, good one. I'll start first by saying that CARB remains technology neutral in its approach to climate change and air pollution reduction. Our regulations really aim to achieve those reductions by any means. Our mobile source strategy, which I recommend checking out, it's updated regularly, includes a strategy using all sorts of technologies to achieve those goals, of course, mostly focused on battery electric and fuel cell electric technologies. We are forecasting that hydrogen fuel cells would be far more useful and far more deployed in the heavy duty space than the light duty space. And certainly current market data is showing that the share of battery electric compared to fuel cell electric vehicles on light duty, it's pretty clear which way the market is going right now. Now, we do remain technology agnostic, and I can't speak to the way that the crediting system works for light duty vehicles. That's a separate division. I work entirely on heavy duty, but I can say that we anticipate there being a substantial role for hydrogen fuel cells in the heavy duty on and off-road space, largely due to the energy needs, duty cycle requirements. Our major regulation for heavy duty, we have two regulations that work in tandem. That's Advanced Clean Fleets and Advanced Clean Trucks. Advanced Clean Trucks requires that manufacturers produce and sell eligible zero emission medium and heavy duty trucks, while Advanced Clean Fleets requires that certain fleets, by certain compliance deadlines over the next 15 years, purchase those zero emission vehicles. It doesn't require that there be a specific share of battery electric hydrogen fuel cell. It's up to fleets to determine what technology works best for them, but we anticipate large volumes of both being deployed as a result of those regulations. On the off-road side, we see that as being a little more nascent, but our demonstration and pilot projects have shown the early demonstration of both hydrogen and battery electric technologies. So unfortunately, I once again don't have a crystal ball for you on exactly what to expect. We try to leave as much as we can to the market, and while getting the emissions reductions that we need.
Okay, so that was Blake. I think we have one more comment. It's by Kathleen Dilly. If I'm not wrong. Kathleen, do you have anything to ask or if you
No,
want? Okay.
I'm all
So,
clear over here. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
all right. Thanks, Kathleen.
And Rishav, if I could just
uh-huh.
briefly, Will gave me a good reminder. I'm talking to a different group of stakeholders than I'm used to, so it might be helpful to make sure everyone understands what I'm talking about when I'm talking about light duty and heavy duty. Light duty is cars, cars and the small pickup trucks that you see that are generally not used for commercial purposes. When we say heavy duty, we're talking everything class 2B and above, so 14,000 pounds greater. These are big things. They include box trucks, vans that are running for Amazon, for example, or box FedEx trucks. It's the class 8 semi tractor trailers that you see running containers from ports to intermodal rail yards. And it's everything off-road, from tractors operating at agricultural sites to large dozers at construction sites and mining equipment, freight rail, passenger rail, and aviation. That is all what we include in heavy duty. Thank you, Will.
Right. So yeah, that I actually had that written down. Why are you so much into trucking and why are you so much into automotives, and where is our niche for aviation? So thank you for saying that. So since we're talking about aviation and we always are very indebted to our friend Mike Hirschberg and the Vertical Flight Society. We are a spinoff of the VFS, and Mike and the VFS, they always do an event on transformative vertical flight, and they've done a lot over at Long Beach. So I just wanted to thank Mike, and Mike, if you have something to say, please do go ahead.
Sure, my pleasure. You can hear me okay? Great. So hey, Matt, that was really great, and I appreciate that talk. So I just, for those of you who aren't familiar with VFS, so we're the Vertical Flight Society. We're interested in anything that takes off and land vertically, but also propulsion systems that are applicable. So we've written really big in electric aviation for more than a decade, and we really see that hydrogen fuel cell propulsion is really a game changer for vertical flight. So beyond just the emissions reductions and things like that, the amount of power and energy available through hydrogen fuel cells is just desperately needed for vertical flight. We do have, Rishav mentioned, every year our transformative vertical flight meeting. It's the longest running meeting on eVTOL. That'll be in February in Phoenix, and we always have hydrogen components there. Actually, the week before this past one, we were in Montreal. We had our 80th annual forum, which is everything vertical flight, helicopters, drones, etc. We had quite a number of hydrogen papers presented. We also had presentations by HYSKY and United Therapeutics, Unither Bioelectronics, who's developing a hydrogen. They're both developing hydrogen helicopters. So all of our conferences have, almost all of our conferences have some sort of hydrogen element. And one upcoming event, just for those who might not be aware, at Oshkosh, EAA's AirVenture in July, we'll have our electric aircraft symposium. I'll put the link to our upcoming events in the chat, but we will have obviously hydrogen talks there as well for anybody planning to go to Oshkosh or looking for an excuse to go to Oshkosh. I also had a question for you, Matt. I don't think you mentioned it. So yes, we are planning our next hydrogen H2 Aero symposium in Long Beach next. It's actually not March. It's the first week of April this week. We pushed it back a week. So California, I think, has actually reduced the support for hydrogen at Long Beach or other places? Can you just briefly mention mention that?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, saying that we've reduced support. Certainly our funding is limited based on what's appropriated to us by the legislature. And then, of course, that funding gets programmed through a couple different pathways, those either being our commercial incentive programs like HVIP and CORE, which are point of sale and first come, first serve, meaning that they don't prioritize any specific technology or another. They're meant to just reduce the incremental cost of purchasing a vehicle. And then we have our demonstration and pilot projects, which in addition to helping cover the cost of pre-commercial or early commercial technologies on the vehicle and equipment side, can also help cover the infrastructure side costs. And those are programmed through competitive solicitation, meaning that projects are submitted to us and scored based on their merits and ability to achieve technology advancement, market acceleration, and emissions reductions. And so those are all selected by competitive solicitation. As I mentioned, our most recent one closed for $225 million last fall, and there are several hydrogen projects that are involved in that one. And we have a handful of hydrogen demonstration or pilot projects currently ongoing. I did add a link to the chat a few minutes ago where you can read about our current and concluded demonstration and pilot projects, which include a number for hydrogen. But Mike, if there is a specific example of that you were looking for information on.
Yeah, well, I think that I don't have all the facts, but there's Shell runs I guess a pilot plant, pilot tanking station there. I think it's supported by Toyota, and I think there was California's funding or support for that, and I thought there was less funding than there used to be. I don't know if there was a change, or maybe that just maybe the pilot plant funding just ended, or do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if that was Shortest Store or was it the California Collaborative? Yeah. So that is involved with, that is one of our demonstration pilot projects. That was Toyota had supplied the fuel cell systems. I believe the trucks were from Freightliner. So that is a demonstration and pilot project. It received a set funding amount based on the award that was issued for it, I believe, back in 2018 or 2019. So again, no retraction of support. Once we issue a grant agreement for a project, that project is guaranteed those funds, obviously barring anything crazy. Once that funding is reserved and encumbered, it is protected, so we don't reduce funding amounts or anything like that. But I do understand that there have been some issues with Shell in particular.
Okay.
Right, that was one I was thinking of, but thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that.
All right. So Matt, we're almost at the end of the presentation. I did see Juice Dale Ferguson. He had his hands raised. Juice, did you want to ask something?
Hey, thanks, Rashav. Really, like Mike Hirschberg being on and representing is actually quite helpful for me, because I've recently joined Vertical Flight Society and some of the committees there. So, right now I think just continuing to work through VFS is probably going to be the most optimal thing for me to do. But I just wanted to put it out there that I'm currently a PhD student for aviation, in addition to owning my own company, HYSKY. And the dissertation, or my focus, is on workforce development, specifically making sure that no big accidents happen, because I think that would derail a lot of the progress. It would delay a lot of the progress that we're making in terms of using other forms of energy besides fossil fuels. And so I just wanted to offer that, because Matt asked earlier, like, hey, what can we do? And, in this space, et cetera, is, like, hey, fund a small business to pay attention and to train the trainers, everybody at airfields, et cetera, on how to properly handle, receive, issue, and store hydrogen and electric. You will see, as you continue down this road, that the handling procedures are not the same. And if we just rely only on the companies who are kind of like making aircraft, for example, that's probably not going to be enough to ensure that there's no big incident that happens. Over.
Hey, thanks, Juice, and congratulations on becoming a PhD student. I know it's a long path. I've personally, having done it myself. So good luck to you. And if there are no more questions, then I think we should call it a day. Thank you so much, Matt. Matt's email is in the chat. Please do get in touch with him. Ask him questions. I think he will either give you funding or advice or show you other avenues which you may want to regarding funding for aviation, other investment strategies over at CARB. I know that we couldn't cover everything, but whatever what is being done at CARB is really huge. It's a complex undertaking. So it was great to have all of you here. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, Mike, Juice, Kathleen, everybody. Amethyst, thank you for asking the questions, and we will see you next month at HYSKY Monthly. Don't forget to check out our website for the Flying High announcements and speakers. Don't forget to look at our AIAA course, and of course, thank you so much for always supporting us. So you have a good day, and bye, everyone.
Great talking to y'all. Thanks.
Thanks, man.